We're here on the shores of Lake Kuyucuk, the site that I've worked the longest at here in eastern Turkey. And this is a lake. We'll go up and take a look at it, but we're going to go up in this bird observation tower that was put up by the ministry in the wake of our getting this established a Ramsar site of international importance, a wetland of importance to people, to birds, to all kinds of things. So let's do a quick walk up our bird observation tower. Now this was established to help tourists have an easier vantage point, attract more people to come here and enjoy the bird diversity, promote ecotourism, etc. So this is a nice little area. It's enclosed. We have several windows now that are broken, but still, it's a pretty nice respite from the wind. It also gives us a nice vantage point. So we can do bird surveys from here, or you can just come observe the wildlife. So when I first started coming here, almost 20 years ago, this lake was a lake. It's not really much of a lake anymore. And it was a typical lacustrine system. It was pretty much mostly wet most of the time, and much of the wetland components were restricted to fringing areas around the standing water that again was mostly standing water year-round. In recent years, we've had a challenge. So over the previous decades, 80s, 90s, over 20, 30 years, we had maybe 2 or 3 periods where we really had low water most of the year. Now, that's almost all years. So what you're looking at, this area that's a tan in the middle of the frame here, this should be standing water. This was all standing water. Now we're recording this in mid-May of 2025. Now it's basically there's definitely water there. It's definitely muddy, but it's basically the water is just about at the soil surface. So it's very little, and give it another month or so, and it'll probably be effectively completely dry. This is a problem. This is a problem for wildlife. This is a problem for ecosystem functioning. This is a problem for just about everybody. You can see here in the foreground one of the sources of stress. This is livestock. And so I did a quick count here. This is about 200 head of cattle. And you can see this was one of my long-term monitoring sites where we tried to originally establish exclosures. We did establish exclosures, vegetation exclosures to augment the vegetation, but a whole bunch of problems with that. Long story short, it didn't really work. It was pretty difficult to keep the cattle out, and especially when the humans like to cut our fences down. But the idea there was to see if we could promote more vegetation. And you can see right now these cattle are just right on in to the fringing vegetation, right on into the wetland. And as the lake continues to dry, they're just going to move more and more into that part of the former lake, the now drying wetland. Big challenges here on many fronts, but perhaps the greatest single challenge is the simple fact that we're losing water. So rather than once or so a decade having a drying event, having a very dry year, which would lead to conditions like this is essentially just about every year in the last 5-6 years. Extremely dry. So by mid-late summer, there is no water at all for most years. And so, a wetland system like this, a lake system like this can take a few years of this. But as we seem to be now in a continual drying period, it's going to change into something else. It's going to change into essentially a wet meadow. The primary issue here, leaving aside all the grazing and everything else, is just simply the lack of snow. So this is filled by snowmelt, and so those surrounding hills, those surrounding mountains should be full of snow and should be having water running off, filling this area even now. And as you can see, we had a little bit of rain a day or two ago, but as you can see, our car, which yesterday or 2 days ago when we drove in was massively muddy because there was so much mud. But now, even just a day and a half later, we're basically driving on effectively dry roads. So our car is nice and clean now. That is not what we would want to see here around this important wetland of international importance. So this is Lake Kuyucuk in the far east of Turkey. The road, you can't quite see the road, but there's a road just on the horizon here to the middle of your view, and that road goes over to the Georgian border. So we're almost into Georgia on the eastern borderlands of Turkey. In the Caucasian steppes, high mountain steppes, we're about 2,000-ish meters in elevation. And this is Lake Kuyucuk, or what remains of it, here in Turkey.